We said, if you really think about what belonging means, to belong to a group is to what? What does that mean? It's to feel what? Accepted and safe. But the ultimate form of acceptance, if we really distill it down to its core, what's the ultimate expression of acceptance? Love. It's love. Now here's the question for us to consider. Is it possible to create experiences as leaders for other people to belong if you don't feel like you belong? So if I don't feel like I belong, I can't help other people feel like they belong. And the first place I can start to create belonging for myself is to fully accept myself. To love myself all the way. And if I'm completely honest with you, as I stand before here and we started to do this work, I'd ask myself, do I always accept and love myself completely? When am I my own worst, harshest critic? All the time. Right? I don't need anybody else to tell me that I'm not doing a great job. I got that covered. Have I fully accepted and loved myself enough to create a sense of belonging for me, number one, so that I then have the gift and the opportunity to create a sense of belonging for another? Because I don't know, as human beings and as leaders, if there is a greater feeling in the world to help someone else feel like they belong. To say to someone, I see you for who you really are. I see you. And I accept all of you. That's not something that we just do in our personal lives. That is possible to create that in work. And I'll leave you with this final example. 5 years ago, I had an opportunity to watch a gentleman who is now the chairman of North America for PwC. At the time, he was just an up-and-coming senior partner. Tim talked about his first day at PwC. Tim did not come from a lot of money. Tim came from a very, very, very humble beginnings. In fact, his first day of work, he showed up in a second-hand suit bought at essentially a Goodwill that his mom had bought him. Had always never felt like he belonged or that he was good enough. And he enters down into this little basement office in New York City. This is in the early 90s. Some of you were working, some of you remember that environment. In this particular office, this particular group, it was primarily men. They're in this little office. It's a July day. And as the morning is progressing on this first day, the temperature in this little office is approaching about 100 degrees. There's no air conditioning. And as Tim is looking around the room, he's noticing that as people are taking off their jackets, everyone around him, everyone, is wearing a long sleeve blue collared shirt. And what Tim knows is that underneath his wool, itchy, second-hand suit jacket is a short sleeve white shirt. Now that might not sound like a big deal, but for a kid who didn't come from much, never felt like he belonged, was not good enough to be there, the last thing he was going to do was take that jacket off and be the only kid wearing that. And so he sat there sweating under the stifling heat with this jacket all morning. And the manager in this little office at lunchtime comes over and taps him on the shoulder and says, "Hey, Tim, let's go grab some lunch." Which to Tim was already mind-boggling that this leader recognized him, like, why me? Like, my first day, someone wants to have lunch with me. But his manager didn't take him to lunch. His manager takes him out. He takes him across the street to a little department store, and he buys him a long-sleeve blue shirt. I get emotional just thinking about it. It's not a small thing. That one act of kindness, that one act of seeing someone who didn't feel like they belonged, didn't feel like they were worthy to be there, that leader reached out and created a moment for them to say, I see you, I accept you, you are good enough to be here, you belong here. And it changed his life. Never left PwC. He came home. He had arrived.